I was speaking to my coworker yesterday, and he mentioned, "Hey, Nate, you work for an automation firm. Why haven't you used automation in the programming and designing of your game?" And I had to think about that, and there wasn't really a good reason. I mean, I started programming the game, just kind of diving into Godot and getting some experience behind what I was creating, what I was building, but I thought about it and I was like, oh, that would be interesting to check it out, see what's out there, and see if it would help my project. So I want to show you kind of what I've done, what I've used GitHub Copilot for, just introducing real quick intro to what are those things, how can you use it to improve your development or hopefully improve your development. And this wasn't like a tutorial of like how do you build a game using AI or anything, but I think it's very interesting to see like what the capabilities of the current application are and where I'm planning to implement them and use them, and then also maybe what to look out for if you're planning on integrating Copilot into one of your projects, because I found a couple caveats that I'm going to have to work through or figure out. So let's check it out. So the first thing I did here today was just do a quick feature add, which is add a negative sound when the user doesn't have enough points to purchase the item. So real quick, it was just one of my story cards that I hadn't finished out for the sprint, and it seemed pretty easy, pretty low feature point value, just something I had to just go and do. And I was like, oh, this could be a really good use case to see if Copilot could knock it out for me. So I just asked the question in normal language. I'm using the agent model, which I believe is paid for. I used a couple times and I saw that it auto created documentation for me with MK Docs and did all of that. And I immediately went and bought a license because I was like, anything that helps me with documentation, especially development documentations, great in my book. So that saved me a lot of time right there. But so I just asked the model, I said, okay, can we give like a negative sound when people don't have enough points to purchase the item? And it goes through, it uses references. So it checked my script out, it used main, and then it summarized what I wanted to have happen. And then through that, it actually went through and performed those actions. Actually, this text is probably a little small, huh? I'll zoom in, it's fine. Let's see if we can zoom into it a little bit more. Nope. Oh, maybe. There we go. Much better. Okay, so I'm trying to do the one shot thing where I don't start and stop recording every 3 seconds. But we're gonna try to just roll through it. So where was I? Yes. GitHub Copilot summarizes after you make the request. It summarizes like the action. It says, okay, let's add a negative sound effect when the player doesn't have enough points to purchase the item. It looks at main and then it creates kind of like a plan. Like this is what I'm planning to do is add a new sound effect, play the sound effect, or add another helper function, which is just it listens to my code structure and says like, yes, I have this negative sound effect helper function, and you got to add to that list to maintain my code. And then it calls the negative sound whenever this function appears, which is the insufficient points warning trigger. So it summarizes and it gives you actually like what's been changed or what it's planning to change or has changed, or it highlights those elements, which is really good. Like all the adds, the deletions, the negations. So if we cruise over here in this code portion, it can see like the differences. If you click on like one of the differences, it gives you an example of hey, I'm going to add this line here. And you can just cruise through your program and it says like, yeah, I got to add this negative sound effect. And then down here, it's like, oh, yep, that's exactly where I want it. I want to play the sound. So it had the plan, and then it just implemented it. So I forgot to say like, hey, don't go through and implement this code before you ask me about it. So it just went through and implemented all the code like in the same call. So maybe in the future, one of the tips would be to say like, hey, please give me what you're planning to do, but don't implement it yet. That way you have an opportunity to review the code and look at like what it's doing before it does it. And then I did notice, so I went over into my Godot player, my Godot session, onto the main scene. I saw that it didn't automatically add the audio stream player onto the list of audio that I had for my game. So I just continued the conversation and said like, hey, like my guess was yes, I needed to do this manually, but do I need to add this audio player onto the main tree structure for this to work? So I wanted to call out and just ask Copilot, hey, do I have to do some work here? And it didn't initially tell me that. So that's another point of, you know, make sure you ask for an implementation plan before it goes and executes something. But then additionally, you might have to ask, are there any follow-up jobs or follow-up work that I manually have to do? Now you could probably add to the instruction set on your Copilot and really just flesh it out and say like, yes, present me with the following information and this is why. Add any plans add any plans that you have to do or add any manual steps that I have. You could probably include that in an instruction set somewhere. But I just went out of the box. How does this thing look and operate? So then it explains, like, it reads or reviews your scene structure. It looks at I don't know why it looked at the testing ground scene. Maybe that's what I had highlighted at the moment. Or it says, yeah, 1 through 14 scenes. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure there what it's doing. But it just goes through and says like, yes, this is what you have to do. These are the steps that you have to take. And then I went so far as just saying like, hey, can you just commit this for me? Because I'm too lazy to look up the git commands for the 15th time today. So it just said, hey, this is the git commands. This is, I haven't re-added any of my aliases onto my desktop or my workstation to just do all this at once. When I used to do this a lot, I just added all this stuff into like one alias and called everything all at once. But yeah, it just said like, yep, this is exactly what we're going to do, exactly how we're going to treat it. And then over here in GitHub, it just shows up as a pull request. So I did finally get all my code pushed up to GitHub, and it just goes through. And then on GitHub, you can also do that sanity check to say like, okay, this is all it's adding to it, which is the negative sound. It's adding the negative audio, and then down a little bit, it goes in and describes like the other thing that it's doing here, which I gotta scoot this down there a little bit to see, but which is the negative sound reaction in that function. So very cool. Loved that it did that. If we want to, we can actually go ahead and just try something live as well and see if a live demo works. And then after we do the next example here, then we'll go through and explain like maybe where it fails or could fail a little bit. That might be good to do. But we could just say like, hello, wrong keyboard. Hello, can we add a new branch? And I'm just doing all features, all fixes, everything in separate branches for now, called coffee fix. And that way it just helps me modularize all my fixes. Like in actuality, what we'd probably do is, sit down and say like, okay, what things do I want to do today, focus on today, and then switch to one branch for all of that stuff. Or if I'm working on like a major feature, you could switch to like a major feature branch to go through and work on all those items. But I'm just doing like onesie twosies and playing around here. So we're just doing simple stuff for now. To change our coffee name. So, what I really like is the human language aspect of the program. It just goes through and says like, yep, this is what you got to do in order to do that. Do you want to do that? I click continue and it says, yep, I'm on the right branch. So I can verify that here, switch to a new branch here of coffee fix. Okay, cool. Can we rename all instances of coffee machine to just coffee? So same thing. It just goes through, it works, it reviews all of my code in everything, and it even highlights here where I believe, nope, I don't know what that highlight was for. Oh, there we go. Coffee, defense coffee. Basically, I wanted to remove the reference of machine because I just wanted it to be coffee and not machine. And I also didn't want to have to search through all this application, all this stuff to update my code to figure that out. So I figured that would be another good example we could do. We could try live to see if it would work. So, boom. We're going to add that to main. We're going to commit it. And then we're going to push it upstream. So I guess it's learned that I don't want to do the commands myself already because it's already suggesting just here you go. Here's the push upstream. Here's the stuff. And we could probably see that new feature request if we look here. So yep, we've got a new feature request of our coffee fix where we can click and view the click and view the changes to our code, just like before. So we can see the instance of coffee here. We can see the defense coffee. And it just removes the word machine everywhere. Now, I'll probably have to ask it as well to say like, hey, is there anything else I have to do? Do I have to update any references in the UI in Godot? And I'm just asking it plain English. Yes, you should update any reference. Oh, well, okay, that's a pretty generic answer. You do not need to change the scene file name. Oh, okay, so it's just giving me some descriptors here. All user-facing. Would you like me to search and update these references automatically? Oh, yeah, sure. Let's try that. And I use the word please for AI just because when the robots take over, that's important. And then it's just going through my actual scene structure now. And updating any references to coffee. So we had some references in like defenses here with coffee machine. So we'll see if it goes through and updates those automatically. Yep, and see it reads it. That's what it did. Updated the coffee machine. Okay, what do we got here? And then Godot's like, hey, what are you doing? You're messing with files outside of the system here. So we're gonna reload that from disk. And then we should see it update. So we didn't see the machine scene update. You do not need to change the file name unless you want to fully... Oh, okay, well, hold on a second. The root node in the scene has changed. Okay, maybe we should read a little bit more. Okay, there we go. So this was called Coffee Machine, and it just renamed it to Coffee, but it didn't adjust my scene because that's another thing I was going to mention was yesterday I tried to do like an overworld scene. So if you've ever played like, Super Mario Brothers or anything like that, and you have the individual levels that you're playing, and then you zoom out to like the overworld map, I wanted to do something very similar in my game. But every time I tried to get Copilot to build a scene structure for me, it just didn't, it always errored out. And I couldn't figure out yesterday why, where it was, we were trying, it was like, trying multiple times. And it just kept saying it was a parsing error whenever Godot tried to open up the scene itself. It would just pop up with an error. And I think if I see correctly, yep, exactly. So this was the error right here, failed loading resource. Make sure the resource has been imported by opening the project in the editor at least once, which is what I was trying to do, but it wouldn't let me actually open it. So I didn't really understand what that error was. Maybe I'll try a couple more times and play around with, automating the development of my scenes. But if I have to set up the scene structure and focus more on the level look and feel, and then have Copilot there to help me with the actual logical development of it, I mean, that's a win. And for little things like this, especially, where it's like I know it's kind of low level, not low level, but low value, I guess you could say. Like the low value, low hanging pieces of fruit that you just need to go through and clean up. I think this is really beneficial. I did watch one of my coworkers yesterday as he was explaining Copilot. He went through and built an entire just asteroids program while we were talking in about 30 seconds to explain just how powerful this was. And I'm very intrigued by that because, it opens up that question of like, what's the value of work, and do you consider using automation as a tool and an asset, which of course I do. I work in automation. That's what I really do think we should be leveraging these tools with what we can. But when does it become? I was kind of struggling with this in the conversation yesterday and trying to find the words for it. But if we're using automation to do coding assignments and helping and really looking at these things in a different light, does it no longer become like you developed this project, or does it become like, well, Copilot developed this project and you were just steering it along? And what I was thinking about in the shower this morning was I equate it right now. I'm equating it more to like the conversation around when photography was coming out. Photography is super important, has seen a lot of advancements basically over the decades. And I actually saw this because I remember in high school, in middle school, you had to, well, in high school, you had to go through and go through the dark room and develop your own images in a dark room. It took a while. You could only snap, a dozen or so. And it was a very long process to do that, a very manual process to do that. And then as the decades have gone by, we've seen a lot of advancements with camera equipment, with exposures, with development, where, we got the DSLRs, and then we got the mirrorless, and just fantastic advancements in that field. But I wouldn't consider a photographer that shoots on digital or even your phone, I wouldn't consider you less of a photographer than like Ansel Adams did back in the day, lugging the entire backpack worth of material over the mountainscape. So I think the tool sets just get more important, and they get better and better and better as the decades go by. And they just kind of help us. I don't know what I want to say. They kind of help us like tell our vision to the world without hopefully getting in the way around around what we're trying to do. So I think as long as you're leveraging the tools and not like fully having them do everything for you, then I think you're in a good spot. Otherwise, there were some inconsistencies and problems that you have to look out for, right? So automation, one thing I tell my customers all the time is automation is an amplifier, and it's brilliant. but it will amplify both good tendencies and bad tendencies. So you just have to make sure that you can discern which is good and which is bad for your use case. And use cases are different too. One use case might be really good to amplify a certain message. Another use case might be really bad. It's really just up to like your determination when you use these programs and when you use these applications. So right now, the way that I'm thinking about doing it is using GitHub Copilot. That's going to be awesome for like my little I don't know, developer, AI bot developer, a little assistant on there when I'm like trying to figure out structures, or when I'm trying to clean up formats, or just generic. Okay, this is what. How can we code this up? Give me a boilerplate, and then let me tinker from there. I think that's a really good tool that I'm going to employ. And then ChatGPT. I love the image creation and the generation and the ideation that comes from that application. So they're almost like a little creative art director next to me, sitting there bouncing off ideas. And then with these two applications, my hope is that I just take the development of this thing from like 2 years to not 2 years. It's great to learn about all these applications and everything, but also when I do see something that'll just speed up time to delivery, I jump all over it. And yeah, yeah, automation's great. So let me know your thoughts. Have you played with Copilot at all? Have you played with different applications and different things to help speed up your work? And then also, what are your thoughts around the conversation around using automation to create creative work, and when does it no longer become yours, or is it always yours and we're just using better calculators, better cameras? So yeah, that was my hot minute take, my thought process this afternoon, and I just wanted to pop on and do a quick one shot video of everything. But yeah, I'll see y'all on the next one.